Outlet Liquor is your place to buy a case. Stock up and save when you shop the lowest prices available every day at Outlet Liquor. You never have to wait for a sale. The more you buy, the more you save. Only at Outlet Liquor.
What's your outlet?
Welcome to I'll Hang Up and Listen. I am Duane from Two Goalies, One Mic. Two Goalies, One Mic, joined by Hurls, also from Two Goalies, One Mic, in the final show of the season, at least for the Sabres. Sabres beat the Blue Jackets 5-2, and a bitter yet sweet ending, I guess. I don't know how to really describe it. I don't really have a good way of words to describe how this ending kind of feels. Because normally a month ago we can't wait for the season to end, and now we just don't want it to end. So Hurls, I'll let you kick it off with how you feel tonight with the way the season ended, and just how you feel.
Yeah, I would say bittersweet is a good way to describe it. I was sitting there watching the game thinking, like, this is the first time in a while watching game 82 where I was actively rooting for the Sabres to win. It's been a long time since we've felt these emotions about this team. Maybe last season, because the way they ended the season, the vibes were off the charts. It was a similar ending to the season, so it wasn't as much actively rooting for a tank. But this season, they were in the playoff race until 2 games ago. If they had won one more game, given the way that everything finished, they would have been in the playoffs. I'm not sure if they'd won the Devils game, absolutely it would have happened the way it shook out. But either way, they were right on the cusp for the final month of the season, the final 2 weeks, largely, in my opinion, because of the timing of the Devin Levi signing and how well he played down the stretch. And that is the greatest source of inspiration and hope that any Sabres fan can take into this summer, is that it appears the team has finally found their answer in goal. And I think without a shadow of a doubt, they have their starting goalie going into the 2023-2024 season. And that's something the Sabres haven't been able to say with any amount of confidence, probably since 10 years, since the 2013-2014 season, when Ryan Miller entered his final season with the team and got traded in 2014. So that is a really, really good feeling. And that's what I'm going to think about all summer long.
Yeah. And again, there's a lot of highs to really, like, when you look back at this season, to really kind of embrace. Casey Middlestat, I'm not sure if he got point number 60 there at the end.
I don't think he did. I'll confirm it, but I'm almost positive he did not.
Yeah, I think he's at 59.
He finished with 59, 15 goals, 40.
Still a career high for him.
Yeah, by a large margin. He also played. He was the only guy on the roster to play all 82 games.
Yeah, and that was one of the things with him the last couple of years, is staying healthy. He has stayed healthy all year, which is obviously huge. You already touched on it. The arrival of Devin Levi, and I think that's where we'll kick things off. Obviously we'll talk about the game, but Devin Levi, is he our starter next season? I mean, did he do enough in this small sample size to get the fan base? I mean, at least the fans, I think, majority of the fans, but to convince the organization that he is your starter game one. I think it's his position to lose. I don't foresee Kevin Adams making any big splash in the goaltending market, unless the deal is just right and it's a situation where you aren't exactly taking a ton of time away from Levi rather than put him in a situation to continue to learn. But I don't see that deal out there. So I truly do believe that Devin Levi is your starter game 1. Who's his backup? I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if you did go into the camp with the same 3 goaltenders, but I wouldn't be surprised if you've seen a UPL trade in the offseason.
I think it's definitely going to happen. I really do believe that's definitely going to happen. And it seems like Seattle is a pretty likely destination for that. They've struggled a little bit in goal this year, aside from them being a very good team. Grubauer has picked it up as of late, and they've got a couple prospects, but Jason Botterill drafted UPL, and he's the assistant GM in Seattle. Yep. I've heard that talked about.
Very good point.
I think that Sabres fans would be a little bit disappointed if they went into camp with Levi, Comrie, and UPL as the 3 options. I think largely there's no real confidence in UPL or Comrie, which I think is a tiny bit undeserved. I think Comrie had a lot of bad breaks this season. He got hurt twice. He got put in bad positions. That 10-goal game against the Stars is not on him whatsoever. He obviously wasn't what you expected him to be, but I do think it was largely circumstantial. I think he is an average to above average goalie when he's playing his best. And I think he could be a quality NHL backup, as he showed in Winnipeg behind Connor Hellebuyck. I think a lot of people want a steady veteran force a la Craig Anderson, but it's obviously not going to be Craig Anderson. The name that I keep hearing that a lot of people do want is Semyon Varlamov. He has been in the league. He's 35 years old.
I can see that.
I had no idea he was 35 years old, but he's been in the league for a long time. He's been consistent, and he's shown that he can do well in a large or limited workload. He's as consistent and middle of the road to above average of an NHL goalie as you can possibly get. So you bring in a guy like that to hopefully give you 30 to 35 games, and you give Levi 50 to 55, maybe 40, 45 to 50, depending on what you really think about his plan. But I would say that the large majority of the fan base would want that type of situation.
Yeah, I could definitely see a Varlamov acquisition that makes sense to me. He's not a guy that's going to expect or demand, a ton of time. And God forbid, you run into a Levi injury, you have a very, very, very serviceable backup, much like Anderson, a younger version of Anderson, essentially. But yeah, I digress. I think that, again, I wouldn't be surprised if you come into the camp with the same 3 goaltenders, but I wouldn't be surprised if the only goaltender next year on the roster would be Devin Levi from this year's roster.
Currently, yeah.
Yeah. So
I think that, like in Varlamov's case, like he's behind Sorokin right now. So there's legitimately no chance of him being a starting goalie. So if he comes in behind Levi, who hopefully will be the starting goalie, but it's also his first full NHL season, he will be still considered to be a rookie. That at least gives him more opportunity to end his career on a high note, similar to Craig Anderson. Yep. There are a couple of Russian guys on the team. I think Lyubushkin and him would probably get along pretty well. And I just think that it would be the perfect situation to backstop what you would want to solidify that position, because you don't want to have UPL or Comrie as your backup plan, like you said, in case Levi gets injured. Or it's not out of the question that he goes through a rough patch. Like, he's proven at almost every single level that he's a really good goalie, and we saw it in these 7 games this season. But in his first full NHL season on a team like this that doesn't play the best defense, hopefully they'll be a little bit better next season. There's a chance that he does go through a rough patch. It happens with goalies.
Oh, yeah.
So you want a guy that you know can succeed in the NHL and has for a long time, and that is exactly Semyon Varlamov. So I hope something like that happens.
Yeah. Again, I am in full agreement that we need somebody behind Levi that can bring some stability to not just on the ice, on the off chance that whenever Levi is not playing, or if, again, God forbid, he gets hurt, but bring some stability to the goaltender room. A guy for Devin to lean on. I'm in full agreement of that. And speaking of, his play tonight was fantastic. I mean, second goal, it is what it is. I mean, I'm not going to write a letter about it.
No, I'm not going to lose sleep either. It happens. Like, that is
every night.
The goals he let up in 7 games this season. that is his worst goal. And he'll tell you that himself. But at the same time, like, that's the nature of the position.
Yep.
It was a bad angle, weird shot, trickled through him. It is what it is. You're not going to, if anybody sees that goal scored on him and is worried about Devin Levi, you don't know the position of goaltending. So
agreed. And you know, some of the saves he did make, especially in tight, I mean, God, he's just
that's the one in the second period specifically.
Yeah, it even started to seem like the team has started to kind of adjust to his style of play.
For sure.
They're getting into those gaps where you could see a loose puck squirt off a rebound or per se if Devin's caught out of position, because again, he is a very aggressive goaltender. So you kind of started to see that they were adjusting to his style and the way he plays. So that was a positive note thing that I noticed as well. But I digress. Here's a question: who's your MVP?
Tage Thompson.
I think absolutely.
It's got to be. I mean, he had 94 points, 47 goals. He became a bona fide superstar, fringe Hart Trophy candidate. So if he's not the MVP of your team and he was in the conversation for the MVP of the league, that doesn't necessarily make sense. I would say a very, very close second and third are Dahlin and Tuck. You saw it when they got injured, how much it affected the lineup. Dahlin specifically because he's improved his defensive game so much to the point where you can rely on him as a defensive defenseman, while he also scored 73 points. It's nothing compared to Erik Karlsson, but Erik Karlsson doesn't play defense. So as a defenseman. So I think in a different role, it's Dahlin defensively. And then Alex Tuck is the lifeblood of this team. He makes them go. You hear Rob Ray say it all the time. He won the Rick Martin Award last night for a reason. I know it's fan voted, but I have a slight idea that the organization wanted to give that to him as a way to usher along the, in my opinion, hopefully next captain of the Sabres, if Okposo does decide to call it a career. But if you have to pick one, it's Tage Thompson.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And let's be real. If not for the two injuries he sustained, both most recently and right before the All-Star break, you're looking at a easy 50-plus goal score.
Yep.
I'd even entertain the idea of him getting close to 60.
Yep.
With the pace he was scoring at, and then probably 110 to 120 points.
You're also probably looking at a playoff appearance too.
100%. Yeah.
And same with Tuck and Dahlin. If they don't go down when they did, and they don't have that 2-6-2 stretch at the beginning of March that they did.
Yep.
You're in the playoffs. And then you think back to the 0-8 stretch in November, and a guy I would probably put in the top 5 for consideration is Matthias Samuelsson. They had the record with Matthias this season without Samuelsson was night and day. He is that steady stay-at-home defenseman that the Sabres have been looking for a long time. A guy you can rely on, a glue guy in the locker room. Everything about him is amazing. And then a guy that we can't forget to mention is Jeff Skinner. He's in the same way. I think he glues that locker room together, as you saw with his Between Two Stalls series this season.
Yep.
He is an absolute beauty. And also he reminded everybody this season what he still had after the absolute nightmare that was the Ralph Kruger era. The dude can still play with the best of them. He can score, he can pass, he's a playmaker, he is a friend to everybody. Jeff Skinner is back, and he's not going anywhere the way he plays.
Yeah, and I even tweeted out, I was having some fun with it because somebody tweeted out the Zoom call interview with Ralph Kruger about how Jeff Skinner measures himself in only goals. And, I know eye roll, major eye roll of the back of your head type of eye roll. But I went back and looked it up. Under Ralph Kruger that season, he only scored 2 goals.
He barely played. He put him on the 4th line.
Yeah, 4th liner of the press box.
Nothing to say about Ralph Kruger.
Yeah. After Ralph was fired on March 17th, 2021, Jeff Skinner has scored 73 goals. So, and I mean, we always kind of look at Jeff Skinner as kind of the black sheep of the Ralph Kruger era. but Casey Middlestat too didn't,
Similarly for sure.
very, very underutilized. And because of that underutilization, and again, there are a lot of reasons you can look at Casey.
He was young at that time too.
Yeah. And obviously to transition, into Casey, I think cementing himself for the future, top 6 role.
For sure.
I had a serious conversation while golfing today. Like, I could totally see him being your second line center.
Real quick. How'd you shoot?
Oh, I shot a 92.
Where'd you play?
Harvest Hill.
Okay.
But,
I have a quick aside. I got a hole in one the other night.
Get the fuck out of here.
Got my first hole in one of my life the other night.
And we're finding this out now?
I mean, that's the first time we've talked since. I just
yeah, we text like you.
I mean,
I
should have told you. Maybe I was waiting for my big reveal on air, but yeah.
How do you announce it a hole in one days later?
It was the night after the Sabres lost. It was Wednesday night, and my buddy texted me. He goes, "The Sabres playoff chances died, so you could get a hole in one." It's the first thought I had in my head when it went in. So,
well, I was gonna follow up. Again, I usually hit mid to low 80s. So, but it was the first time out. I wasn't that.
You don't need to explain it to me. Golf's a tough game.
Yeah, it is. But I did dunk an 80-yard birdie with my 60-degree today on the front 9 there.
That's almost a hole in one.
Drained it.
That's almost a hole in one to me.
Yeah,
back to just that. I just had to get that.
I can't even be proud of that because you stole my thunder.
It was 135 yards, nice little cut, 7 feet from the hole, dropped right in, disappeared off the face of the earth. It was the best feeling I've ever had in my life.
Yeah, it was like one of the greatest feelings I had earlier today until you ruined it. So
sorry, my bad. But back to the Middlestat conversation.
No, congratulations, dude. That's awesome. You got the ball, obviously, right?
Oh, of course.
Where's
got
the ball?
Scorecard, got the ball, got everything.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, but back to Casey. We had a serious conversation today about he could be a second line center on this team next year. And I wouldn't hate it. I know Cousins is kind of slotted into that guy, but I also look at Dylan Cousins as a guy who can really elevate whoever he's playing with. He doesn't need bona fide scoring wingers for him to carry a line. He can carry a line on his own. So
I think you keep that line together next year. The chemistry that the kid line had.
Oh, I'm not saying you don't do that.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying though. But like, given the strides Middlestat has taken, and hopefully the acquisitions you make in the offseason, that could be a 2A, 2B type situation in your middle 6.
Mm-hmm.
Your middle 6, middle stat. That's a good problem to have though. Like if you pick up like a guy like Jason Zucker, you pick up a guy like Tyler Bertuzzi, you want to make a somewhat big time acquisition in your middle 6 this offseason with the amount of cap space that you have.
Mm-hmm.
So you bring in another solid NHL player that's produced throughout their career to put with Middlestat, to put with Cousins or whatever you want to do there. That is making your hockey team better. So I hope they do something like that. I really do, because this team deserves it. The way that they played this season.
Yep. I look at kind of like looking forward to next, the off season, after you take care of your own, you take care of Darlene, and we'll see if Kevin starts the conversations with Owen Power, getting him locked up. Maybe he does get him locked up.
I think he gets both done this summer.
I hope so.
Owen Power is going to be a top 5 NHL defenseman in like 2
I think you offer him 8 for 8.
Yep.
Similar
to the Cousins and Tage, and he'll take it. Like, I really do believe that. Like these guys want to be here, and that showed with Tage and Cousins taking the deals that they did. And I think Power would do the same thing. Darlene's going to get 10, and that's like he deserves 10. He's a top 3 defenseman in the league. But Owen Power at this stage in his career, I think would do 8 for 8. I really do.
I think so too, and he'll exceed that contract, much like Tage already has his,
and Cousins as well.
In no time at all.
And it's the smart way to do business, because you're projecting for the future, and while projecting for the future, you're inspiring a vote of confidence in your player. Mm-hmm. You're rewarding them for what they've done, but also like, hey, you're going to be this good. You're not going to be a Connor McDavid, but like we are giving you a fair deal at this time based upon your projection. So I think Kevin Adams is really smart the way he's handling this.
Yeah. And when it comes to Casey, my point being is, you keep that kid line together. But I think in the offseason, what maybe before this past month wasn't, maybe on your mind or something, a necessity is to find another scoring winger for Casey Middlestat, because he showed what he could do with high level talent on the top line.
17 points in 11 games or
yeah.
something. Crazy.
So it's crazy. It's nuts.
He's a completely different player. He's a playmaker, but he can also score when he needs to.
And Tage is going right back to that spot next season. There's no doubt.
Sure, and there's no reason for him not to. It was one of the best lines in the entire league all season long.
Yep, and you find him another scoring winger, whether it's Zucker, I'm sure the fan base would lose its fucking minds. Pat Kane, whoever that guy might be, find him a scoring winger. It doesn't even have to be an elite level talent, just a higher level talent to play with Casey Middlestat on the other side of whoever it is that's going to be maybe coming up, whether maybe it's Yuri Kulik, is it Krebs, like whoever it might be, because I don't think Krebs is playing down the middle for you next season.
No, I don't think so either. And well, I mean, I wouldn't hate Krebs centering Middlestat in a free agent acquisition. I really don't. I think Krebs.
I just think Middlestat thrived too much in the middle.
I agree to an extent, but at the same time, like I do think those two could be sort of positionless. Obviously, like you see which one works better, who's a better face-off guy, number one. But I just think that it really will help, in my opinion, to put Krebs with better talent as well. He's a playmaker. You saw it so many times this season, and he also has that jam that you saw him play with on the fourth line.
Yep.
So I know you mentioned that like he potentially could be fighting to make the roster and that is largely dependent upon who they sign. I really do believe that.
And again, it's not an indictment against Peyton Krebs.
No, not at all.
I think he could be a good candidate for a breakout player of the year next season.
Yeah, but I think given the fact they acquired him in that Eichel trade, I think there's like a tiny bit of sentimental value there. I really do. I think Kevin Adams is going to use that trade as the linchpin of his GM resume for the rest of his career, because right now it's turned out really, really well. If that line was Krebs, Middlestat, and Kulik, I don't think people would be upset about it, given the way that Yuri Kulik has developed this season in Rochester. But I do think that it would be good to have an established NHL winger that you can rely on and trust. So we'll see what happens, but I hope they do something a lot like that.
Yeah, and let me think. For me too, and again, I was one of the guys at the start of the season that had very little faith in Casey Middlestat. And many others.
I mean, if you had faith in him, I feel like you were in the minority.
Yeah, very much in the minority. It is, health issues, and I've said this 100 times. You always find out about a player when their back is up against the wall. And just like kind of what I alluded to with Krebs, that's what with Casey Middlestat went into this season. It's like, I need to show this organization that I could be a part of this team's future. Like I have to perform well. And he did. He
worked his ass off.
Huh?
He worked his ass off, and everybody in the room has said it.
He came
he's
in heavier.
Stronger, he's faster, and he always had the skill.
Yep.
He always had the vision. He always had the playmaking. But you can tell that he took his game to another level physically, and it showed in the final month.
And I forget who scored the goal. It might have been last game. What was it? It was it all started with Casey. Oh, it was the Henry Jokiharju goal. It was started with a board battle. Last season and previous seasons, Casey loses that battle 10 times out of 10.
Yep.
He stays engaged. He battled through that. He started on one side of that lineup of players on that board battle, and he ended up out on the other side with the puck, fed it to Jokiharju, who throws it on net, gets a lucky bounce, and it goes in.
That combination of the skill and the vision that he has with a little bit of strength and speed, like that is the player we all envisioned. Yes. That is the guy in the World Juniors who was skating through people because he was bigger and faster than stronger against his opponents. If he can at least be the same level of strength or like middle of the road, but also having high-end skill and vision that he does, he's going to be a very good NHL player for a long time.
For Mauricio, one of our favorites, gracias Sabres for keeping us passionate fans. Interested in a playoff run this late in the year. Hopefully the kids learn valuable lessons. As
the first positive comment I've heard from this guy all season.
Oh, don't worry, man. You want to see the first one? Here we go. Did we qualify for the playoffs? Wow, what a game. Lacked any intensity, no hitting.
I mean, you need it. You need it here and there. It's good to have both.
Lows, right?
It's good to have both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, right?
He does make a good point. I think Samuelson just had an injury, and they decided to sit him down for the final 2 games.
Yeah, Samuelson. That guy's been battling injuries all season, playing through injuries. Same thing with Tage. Same thing with Darlene. And that's what happens at the end of the season. You have guys battling through. I
mean, like the fact that Tage played against the Senators and got the game tying goal to eventually get to the game into overtime, like says all you need to know about his level of heart and his level of care for this team. Like he probably should not have played last night by any stretch of the imagination, given what he's been going through. Yeah, but he did it for Anderson, and that you could see it after the goal. Like Middlestat was getting ready to celebrate and like have teammates come to him, and Darlene was yelling at him like, "Yo, go to Craig."
Yeah, what are you doing?
We're all running to Craig. But yeah, and I heard after the game tonight, like Tage was in the locker room, traveled with the team. There's a picture of Skinner doing an interview with somebody holding up a Miller Lite beer can as a microphone. Yeah. They're all so close, and they're probably going to have a great night because this group of guys is not going to be together next season. They're going to lose Okposo. They're probably going to lose Gergensen.
I honestly think Okposo's here next year.
Yeah, I saw you tweet that earlier. I'm hesitant because I think he knows that he's a step behind. I think, and even in his post-game interview on Tuesday after they officially got eliminated, you could hear the pain in his voice that it felt like he was so upset because he knew that this was his chance to go to the playoffs with his team.
Yeah,
I really do believe that. And I also believe that he might think that he'd be doing a disservice to this team by continuing to go for it when he knows that he's probably a step behind.
I don't disagree with you, but I think that conversation can you hear me twice here?
Yeah, no, I got no echo.
Okay, I'm hearing a little bit. I was hearing a little bit of an echo. I think that with just the lack of, and again, it was supposed to be about Andy, but there was a lack of focus also on Okposo. There was no focus on Okposo, and he's been here for almost 10 seasons.
No, it's
a very long time.
It's a good point. It is a good point. But I would not be upset at all if he had.
Neither would I.
No. Some type of role on the bench next season.
Oh yeah.
Like if he was an assistant coach or a penalty kill specialist, or he was up in the GM booth with Kevin, learning from him. Having him in the organization, in my opinion, is absolutely crucial no matter what happens, because this dude clearly has endeared himself to the city, into the fan base, and he's made a home here, and he's going to be like Thurman Thomas. He's going to be a lifelong Buffalo resident. So I love the guy for it. Everything he's been through. I tweeted out the other night, like that injury and the aftermath of what he experienced with the concussion is absolutely terrifying. And for him to come back from that and still produce and be a leader and be a captain for this team when they need it the most for such a young group. Is one of the more admirable things to happen during the drought. So I just hope it ends up in the way that he's at peace with. And I think it will. I think they'll all make the right decision. I really do.
And from Greg here, and that's the season. Thank you, Sabres, for an amazing ride. We will miss you till next year. I'm excited for what comes next. And thank you for all the amazing people that I have met. Thank you for always sticking by us, Greg. You're always one of the consistent guys here in the comment section, always following along on our post game. And, we wouldn't do this if you guys weren't paying attention. So,
and same for me, honestly, like joining this community, like has introduced me to so many more Sabres fans that I would not have met had I not done this, even on Twitter or elsewhere, people just mentioning. So I think it's great because like people thought that the fan base sort of went away with all of those horrible years. I think that the fair weather fans obviously did, like the people that are middle of the road and only tune in when they're really good, as they did in 05 to 07. But us diehards, us sickos, like we're always going to be here. We're cockroaches. So melding all of those different people together has been really, really cool to see, especially in these last few months. So It's only going to continue. Like this team is going to be good for a really long time, and you could see it in this last month. So.
And it sucks too because they haven't been able to see good hockey until now for over a decade, and you see a lot of this younger generation of hockey fan in Buffalo out there wearing the McDavid, the Draisaitl jerseys. They're wearing the Austin Matthews jerseys. They're wearing.
Why wouldn't they? It's so exciting.
Because they haven't had anything to really value here in Buffalo other than Jack Eichel.
But this team is going to change that. Yes,
I agree. And I hopefully that they learn to embrace it the way we have, through the good and the bad and the ugly. So
as we've said, there are 4, potentially 5 or 6 superstars on this team.
Mm-hmm.
Tage Thompson, Rasmus Dahlin, Owen Power, Devin Levi. You can put Alex Tuck in there, in my opinion. Fringe level, you can put Jeff Skinner. You can put Dylan Cousins. Like these are guys that are going to be talked about around the league, not just in Buffalo, for the next 10 to 15 years.
And let's be real. That it may not be on paper. They had 4 30-goal scores. Technically, they had 5 because if Victor Olofsson doesn't set the amount of games he does, he absolutely hits 30.
Yeah, he would have gotten a couple more. He would have gotten a couple more meaningless goals to get to 30.
Absolutely. Sure. But I'm happy that he scored in back-to-back games here, just because.
Me too. I hope he goes somewhere with a role where he can contribute.
Absolutely.
Better, like on the right team, that dude can score goals with the best of them. Like that release and that shot. I just think that he needs to be a power play specialist. He needs to be hidden. He needs to be put in a position to succeed. He wasn't going to succeed on this team because you need to be a hard worker. You need to play at both ends of the ice. And he just wasn't that player. No. I feel bad for the guy because it's crazy to think that a 28 goal scorer is become expendable.
Very,
But he doesn't play a complete game. So
a 28 goal scorer who sat in the most important games of the year.
And it's because he doesn't play a complete game.
Exactly.
He doesn't play defense. He's not tough enough. He's Casey Middlestat before Casey Middlestat learned how to play a complete game. So
I like the prediction here from Greg. Middlestat take a leap next year, 25 goals, 70+ points. Very much possible, I think, under this coach.
If he shoots more.
Yep. Who I'm going to say
he needs to learn to take more opportunities and fire the puck on that.
Yeah.
But I think he will focus on that this summer.
I know you're talking about Matt. He's talking about Alex DeBrincat. Again,
picking as a free agent.
Yeah, he's a free agent. He hasn't signed with Ottawa. I'd be all for it, but I mean,
he's the exact type of guy.
I agree, but you got to make sure you lock up your own first in Dahlin and Power before you ever even decide to venture into that.
That's the luxury of having the cap space that they have.
Yep. Doug Clark, great finish to the season. I can't wait for next year already. It's going to be a long 5 months. Agreed. Again, those were the first thoughts that came to my head.
6 months.
5-6 months. Well, 5 months to hit the development camp. 4 months.
Yeah, but 6 months until the start of the season. Whew.
Yeah. Thank you, Vanco's burner account. Wherever you are, thank you. Mauricio. Yep. I always try to get to all the comments as much as I can. They need to trade UPL and send Comrie. They're not going to be able to send Comrie the AHL. You have to clear waivers first and get someone like Demko or Varlamov for Levi next year. Trade Olsen for a better fit. Hopefully Kulik or Savoy is ready to be with Mitz. Kulik will absolutely be in Buffalo next year without a doubt. 18 years old, scored 25 goals in the AHL this season. He's going to be a big part of that playoff run.
He's a better version of Olsen.
Yes, a more complete version of Olsen. Savoy, it's hard to believe, but that's a guy that, I'm not saying he's going to fight to make this team next year, but depending on the makeup of this roster and who returns, because again, I could totally see both Kirkensons and Okposo being here next year.
Yeah.
Kirkensons more so. I just, that's a guy who's probably going to take league minimum to stay in Buffalo.
Yeah, I'm hesitant, to be honest. I know he's been here forever and he's survived everything. I'm hesitant. I know he was an assistant captain too, so there is a leadership role there. But yeah, I personally believe he would be great on a team like the Bruins, to be honest. That type of player on a really good team in a completely checking role. I know that's what he does for the Sabres, but I don't know. I know personally that a lot of fans are ready to move on from Zemgus Kirkensons. And I'm not necessarily in that camp because I do think he does provide a role. They need that type of hard-nosed, defensively minded, offensive player. I wouldn't be too upset if he was gone.
I mean, and this one could go to a lot of guys on this team. It's a tough one to really hammer out. Unsung hero.
I mean, given how the obvious answer is Samuelsson, because the record with him and without him is so incredibly different. But that's been talked about a lot. If you had another one, gosh, I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know if there's another answer.
No, there definitely. I mean, nobody expected Alex Tuch to be this player.
But I don't necessarily think that, like, he's too much of a star to be an unsung hero. You know what I mean? He's a first liner.
There's Casey.
Our friend Matthew Fairburn did an article the other day on the most underrated player on the team. And he went around the locker room asking everybody. And it's so funny because he was just like, yeah, like hockey players love, they don't like to talk about themselves, but they love to talk about their teammates. And I think it turned out that Samuelsson got the most votes, which I think is a great answer given the fact that he's a stay-at-home defenseman. He plays his role and he does it really well.
He gives Darlene the freedom to be who he is.
Exactly. And he doesn't score goals. He doesn't get that many points, but that's exactly, he's the linchpin to the Sabres playing the way that they do, because they do play such a free and free-flowing game. So I think it's Samuelsson, but like it could be Middlestat. It could be, I don't know.
You could literally go. For me, I would pick Middlestat.
Yeah, for sure. Especially the way he ended the season.
Just playing all 82 games, like you said, just being consistent throughout the year.
I mean, he had his stretches where everyone was still pissed at Casey Middlestat.
Well, but here's the thing. If you look, I was looking at it too. He never really went any type of stretch of games where he wasn't at least scoring a point here, point there.
Yeah, I think it's just the lack of goal scoring.
Yeah, I think he's really cemented himself as a true playmaker. We just got done talking about his vision on the ice. You know, I'm not saying it's second to none, but it's up there. His ability,
really good. It's high level. It's
very much so.
It's as good as you're going to get from a second, third liner.
100%. So, I would say Casey Middlestat. I think that with everything that he was facing going into the season, the adversity, you know, the youth movement that was here this season, and it will continue to come next season. Kind of having his back up against the wall, really performed very, very, very well throughout the year, and again did everything he could in the role he was put in to push this team to a playoff spot. While they fell up a point short, 1 win short, it was not because for a lack of effort from Casey Middlestat.
No, and I think two other candidates. I mean, I don't know if it would necessarily fit because they're rookies, but Quinn and Peterka in their first full NHL seasons, coming into a role within the team that you could see the future as it was playing out. They both scored in their 30 points for rookie players in the NHL, like pretty good. And you could see the flashes, like Peterka's speed and his forechecking and his ability to get to the net is really, really good. And Jack Quinn, as I think we can all very plainly see, him gaining confidence, his ability to hold onto the puck in the slot. Once he gets his shot and a little bit better of an ability to finish, the dude is going to be a superstar as well.
Yep.
Like he's very, very good. And you saw it in the AHL last season. And that is the hope for Yuri Kulik. Along that exact same development path as those two. And honestly, it seems like it's even better, to be honest.
Yuri Kulik is everything as advertised.
That's the thing, though. Like, Jack Quinn and JJ Peterka were effectively everything as advertised this season based upon how well they played for the Americans. So if Kulik takes that same type of jump, which is a testament to the organization and the coaching and everything that's happening.
He also did it at 18 years old.
Exactly. Between those two teams, I think it could be really, really good for this team. So yeah, I think it's good to give those two a shout out as well.
And doesn't he have the most goals in AHL history for an 18-year-old? Did I read that somewhere?
I wouldn't be surprised if he did.
Yeah,
he scored another one tonight. I don't know how that game ended up, but Yeah, he seems like the real deal.
Speaking of which, friend of the program, Jane, put on her Snapchat earlier. They serve garbage plates at the Amerks games, and
Why wouldn't they?
well, I know, but I mean, they look so good, better than anything served.
It's the only thing that Rochester has on Buffalo.
Literally, and I'm like, they got to find a way to get these into the fucking Key Bank Center because the line would be out up and down the aisle into the seats to get a garbage.
So, Amerks lost their first playoff game, but
they did. Okay.
Yeah.
Elliot Freeman did just release the playoff schedule for the first round. We'll bring that up here in a second.
Man, I mean, if you're as diehard as you say you are, and you're as tuned in and locked into the future of this team, watch the Americans in the playoffs. It's unfortunate that Levi can't play for them, but they have Yuri Kulik. Lucas Rusek he'll be back down. Another guy that I think has a chance to make the roster next season. He was really good in the short amount of time that he played for the team. So I really liked his game.
Yep. Marc-Andre Fleury would be a bad option for Levi.
That would be such a dream for me.
Could you imagine that locker room? Oh my God. Add Flower to that locker room.
Even just the combination of those two together.
Both are French Canadian to an extent. I know
both French Canadians.
7 is French Canadian.
Both French Canadians. It really seems like they're the same person too. Like Marc-Andre Fleury is this affable, like great personality. He's always been like the jokester of the locker room. We saw with the Bennington mic'd up when he tried to fight the guy.
Yeah,
he seems like the ultimate glue guy, aside from being a very good goalie. He's lost a step in recent years, but he'd be perfect. But he's under contract, and it would have to be via trade.
Yeah, I mean, I would love Marc-Andre Fleury in Buffalo.
If you gave up second-round pick, prospect, UPL.
I was one of the few.
Do it.
When they initially signed Craig Anderson, I was ecstatic because I
honestly, I wouldn't rather sign anyone else trade for anyone else this offseason.
Yes.
If Marc-Andre Fleury became a Sabre next season,
would you trade Olofsson for Flower straight up?
I would trade almost anybody for Marc-Andre Fleury. No,
I don't know about that.
I'm exaggerating, but like he would legitimately be the perfect pairing with Devin Levi.
Yeah,
because they play the game the same way. They're the same person. He'd be amazing in the locker room. He's that veteran presence that can come in there and win you games when they matter most.
Yep. God, if that guy has a no trade clause and he's willing to make the move to Buffalo, I say you do it in a heartbeat.
It's such a pipe dream.
I mean, and he'd be close to Pittsburgh, where he spent most of his life and most of his career.
I don't want to think about it just because I don't think it's going to happen. But if it did,
we can start the movement right now.
God, I really hope so. I've already tweeted it out.
Movement right now.
I tweeted it out like 3 weeks ago. But yeah, we'll see. But it's a really good point. Like someone like that would be absolutely perfect. If we hear not the people that are just making up trade scenarios. It's also a good point. My buddy mentioned this to me the other day. Bring Borgen back. I loved Borgen, and he's been great. He's really good. Very good defenseman for Seattle, and I would be so much in favor of that. I'd be hard pressed to think that they would move him because of how good he's been. Mm-hmm. Dahlin is my MVP. Tage is the easy answer, but Dahlin did a lot in the back end. A tie, in my opinion. Again, you can go either way on that. It's so close. The fact that Dahlin's probably going to be in top 3 or 4 Norris trophy voting, and what he means to this team, obviously, it's very close to a tie. But if I had to pick one, it'd be Tage. I love Samuelson wearing the blue and gold hoodie and flip-flops in the team picture. He's the man. Samuelson, he rules so hard. Like in his interview after he came back from injury, he was just like, "Yeah, I just miss being with the boys. I miss being. I miss being like not in on all the jokes. Like he's got such a dry sense of humor, and he's the best. I love that guy." Yeah, Taxi Squad Skinner, obviously referencing Ralph Kruger. This also Ralph Kruger, $9 million is sitting in the press box, signs of an impending apocalypse. I hope that like he's never allowed back in like the International Monetary Fund or whatever like conferences he used to speak at. I hope he's been blackballed because
he was such a snake charmer, man. He was. Like
it was a smokescreen because it started off really good, and then we realized that like this is not going to work.
Listen, he had us all fooled. I remember when they had him up in that big conference room in the arena, and he was talking to like everybody that
my God, I was all in.
Everybody was applauding.
October of 2019, we wore the white and gold jerseys for the first time at home. I think we beat the Devils like 7-2. Olsen had 2 goals in the power play. And I remember Joe Yerdon tweeting like, wow, a coach really does make this much of a difference in reference to in reference to Phil Housley, who arguably just as bad. Which I hate to say because he's such a legend of the organization. But God,
I like the idea of a scoring winger, but what about the idea of bringing in JT Compher?
The commenters are making great points today.
Yes, absolutely. I hated losing JT Compher in the O'Reilly deal. I hated it because he gave off such Chris Drury vibes like early in his career. I want to say he played in Minnesota.
Yeah.
In college. Just phenomenal. I want to say one of those hockey hotbeds.
Yeah, no, he's a good two-way player. Like he's a very good
player.
Really, really good, solid player.
That you want to talk about a great third line center? There's your guy right there.
Incredible.
I salivate at the idea of him and Cousins on a line together.
That's what I'm saying.
Any
type of guy like this to add to your middle six: Bertuzzi, Jason Zucker, JT Compher, Alex DeBrincat, Patrick Kane, which would obviously come with a lot of different emotions. But
good and bad,
he's a guy that doesn't have to play top line minutes anymore. You put him on the power play or the second power play, he's going to produce. You've seen it with the Rangers. He still has some left in the tank. So, I mean, Tarasenko's out there too. No option should be off the table because if you don't make the playoffs next season, everybody's at risk.
Yep.
It would be a massive organizational failure if the Sabres somehow miss the playoffs next season.
I'm not going to say I don't think it's possible because anything's possible. But
of course, I'm just saying that I think it's possible if they don't bring the right depth in, they don't bring the right experience, they don't make the moves that are easily accessible with the amount of cap space that they have, and the amount of picks that they have in the draft. Like they still have 8 or 9 picks, I think, this year. You can move those picks. Your prospect pool is the best in the league still, and you have a team that should have made the playoffs had it not been for a couple bad injuries and bad times. So Kevin Adams, he's shown so far that he can be great with trades in certain situations. I think he needs to prove it. Looks
like Mauricio doesn't give a fuck about your goal on one here.
It was just a minute aside for a life.
Oh my God.
The once in a lifetime thing. Jesus.
Middlestead kind of reminded me of a Kirby Doc a little when he was on the Hawks. Very weak on the puck and just kind of big dead weight. Early
in his career.
Before the season, I would agree with you. But he put on size, and again, he played like a man whose job was on the line, and because it was. So he really turned it around this year, and I got it. That's why I picked him for my unsung hero. Olsen for Verana. Olsen contract is up 2024. I'm leaning towards UPL and Comrie being our goaltenders at the start of next season. If that's the case, got to go better because it's defenseman. Let's fucking go. Friend of the program, Chris, always chiming in. Thanks, bud. I don't hate the idea of a guy like Verana on this team, but
Verana would be great.
Yeah, he would be.
I'm confused. Does he mean UPL and Comrie being the 2 starters?
Probably got coming into camp with Levi.
Okay,
that's what he's. If I know Chris, that's probably what he's referring to.
Because Devin Levi is playing 45 to 50 games next season.
100%. And you know what? Again, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the thing. I can go either way on that. I could. So
it honestly depends on what's available and what they can do via trade or free agent acquisition.
Yeah,
if they're able to bring in a guy like Marc-Andre Fleury or Semyon Varlamov, see you later, UPL and Eric Comrie.
I could see this if Kyle decided not to come back for home opener as a retirement ceremony for Kyle Okposo. So I could totally see that.
I mean, I would hope
great job. Listen,
I would hope he's behind the bench.
The last 2 seasons between RJ Knight, Ryan Miller Knight. I mean, if you want to lump Jack Eichel Knight into that, like those big important moment games, they've knocked it out of the park. They really have.
I think the fan engagement has improved significantly.
Night and day difference.
I do hesitate to say he should be behind the bench because I think we've seen with the coaching this season, of course, like Don Granato is a great development coach, and he's had a lot of experience in the U.S. development program with young players. So he's proven that he can get a room together, and I think he stays as head coach, obviously. Yeah. But I think his assistants, Matt Ellis, first-time assistant coach. You saw – I'm not sure –
kids 2 years ago.
Exactly. And who was the defensive coach? I've seen the guy. I don't know him by name.
I know Dan Girardi has been silently still on the staff.
Yeah, but there's another guy on the bench there that I don't know by name.
He's bigger. He's a bigger guy.
Yeah. Brown hair.
I don't know his name.
Head. I think he's in charge of the penalty kill, and the Sabres had the worst penalty kill.
Yeah, see ya, bud.
So if it's him, regardless, I just think you need to bring in a more experienced special teams specialist, a guy who's worked in the league, who's had success with the power play and the penalty kill. The power play was great this season, mostly because of Dahlin and Tage Thompson. Let's call a spade here. You have one of the best quarterbacks in the league running your power play, and you have a guy that can shoot at 106 miles per hour into the top shelf of the net on a one-timer. He's almost as good as Ovechkin has ever been in his prime at that exact spot. So you're going to have a good power play. I just think that the systems could be a little bit better. Dylan Cousins is a great penalty killer. They have a lot of guys that can do it. I just think there needs to be a better plan in place. Otherwise, that will kill you again next season.
I agree. Another obviously kind of like seasonal end of season award. I think this one's pretty obvious, but if we weren't going to pick that guy, who would it be?
It's Owen Power.
It's Owen Power, exactly. But if you couldn't pick Owen Power, who is it?
Jack Quinn.
Jack Quinn? You want to go JJ?
I would do Quinn over JJ, but it's really close. They play a different game, but I think the promise and the skill and the poise that Jack Quinn showed this season and the development and what you saw he can turn into, like that goal against the Minnesota Wild where he carried it throughout the zone around three guys, got into the slot, and I think, he sniped Marc-Andre Fleury. That shows you all you need to know about the type of player he's going to be. Paterka is very good, and he's probably the fastest player on the team, but he's not going to be the guy that's going to score you 25 to 30 goals, which I think Quinn will next season.
I think Devin Levi next season, not just for this team, but makes a case for NHL Rookie of the Year. You know, judging from his play this season.
I think he makes a case for Vezina.
Yes. I'm not going to jump the gun that much. I think.
No, I'm kidding.
Sure. With in a league that has Sorokin and Shesterkin in it,
I'm
not going to say the breaks.
I'm very much mostly kidding about that. But
yeah.
At the end of the day, no, it's not out of the question, honestly, given how good he's been at every single level. And if they improve their defense, see what happens.
Yeah, I think that's, again, after you sign your own, that's number one right there.
For sure.
Figure out that second pairing defenseman. You know, I don't care who you have signed through next season. It doesn't matter to me. Find the guy.
A name that's been brought up a lot. It would have to be a trade as well, but I think the Flames are going to blow it up this offseason. Rasmus Andersson.
I love Rasmus Andersson. Man.
A lot of Swedes on the team already. Seems like a great guy. Also, very good two-way defenseman. It's been brought up a lot by people online, and I think it's a situation where they can make it work if they really want to. Dmitry Orlov is a UFA. We'll see what happens with the Bruins, but he would be another guy. He's very good offensively, but he can also play a good stay-at-home physical game. So,
in terms of defensemen, here are your free agents: John Klingberg, Eric Johnson, Matt Dumba.
Dumba would be great.
Yeah, I mean,
would love Dumba.
Yeah, who wouldn't? Dmitry Orlov, Oscar Klefbom. Here's the one that interests me as well: Damon Severson.
Severson would be great. Also, Ryan Graves on the Devils as well.
Yep, Brian Dumoulin. Veteran left-handed defenseman, wouldn't hate that idea. Jake Gardner, Vince Dunn is a UFA next season too. Obviously not a defense. Plays both sides of the blue line, left and right. Love that idea. His name has always been thrown around the past two seasons when it comes to Buffalo. Seems to always be available, and he's such a service defense. But other than that, those are kind of the top names in terms of free agent defensemen. And Shane Gothisbehere.
Yep. He can't play defense, so we're not doing that.
No, he can't. No.
If we want to get crazy talking about, speaking of guys that can't play defense, trade for Erik Karlsson and just have a lot of fun.
Could you imagine that power play?
I mean, to be honest, like no one would be upset. The contract is obviously the big thing that would prevent that, but
just the endless injury history of injuries.
The dude had 100 points as a defenseman.
Yes.
So it's just if you really want to just like, all right, we're not going to play any defense.
Yeah.
Dev, stand on your head. Bring in Erik Karlsson and score 7 goals a game.
Go be Grant Fuhr to the Oilers. You know what I mean? Like Grant Fuhr had like a high 3 goals against average, but they would score 5, 6 goals.
Even just like even the waves that would make on Twitter around the league if the Sabres somehow traded for Erik Karlsson.
And what would the cost even be? Because like obviously it wouldn't be because you're trying to offload that contract.
Second round pick and a prospect.
We're not here advocating an Erik Karlsson trade. But could you imagine? Imagine?
I kind of am, to be honest.
Imagine that between
you get another defensive defenseman and you trade for Erik Karlsson, and that's your 60.
Yep. Just imagine that between two stalls with Jeff Skinner and Erik Karlsson. Slick back hair. God, man. Absolute beauty.
Fun. I mean, well, that's the fun part about this. Like, there are endless possibilities for what Adams can do this offseason, given the trajectory of this team, how much cap space they have, what prospect pool they have, how many draft picks they have. The world is his oyster, and he has proven thus far that he's very good at making trades. He's great at drafting. He's good at developing these guys in a smart and intelligent way. So I'm excited to see what he does.
Yep. As am I. We'll try and wrap up here soon. Even though I don't want to. Favorite moments this season. There's a lot more this season. You have more great moments this season than you've probably had in the previous 5 combined. A lot to keep your head up about. Whether it's, I won't list them. We'll talk about them, but Hurls, when you look back on this year, if you can pin it down to one, just one, what was your favorite moment this year?
I mean, selfishly, 2 weeks ago, Levi's debut.
Yeah, I shouldn't let you go first.
I mean,
let you go first.
We're obviously very biased here as 2 goalies,
yes.
But it's representative of the optimism that this franchise now has because they seemingly have the answer in that they've been waiting for since Ryan Miller was traded in February of 2014. So that is the answer that, of course, we'll both say. But if I'm thinking back to, I actually tweeted out 4 pictures the other night once we were officially eliminated. The 4 that I chose were the team standing around with Tage Thompson's 5 pucks in Columbus. That was his breakout moment, not just for the Sabres, but around the league. The other 2 were, I don't know if you saw it. You want to try to guess?
I'm going to go Ryan Miller night.
Yep. Dylan Cousins on the boards after he scored.
Oh, are you talking about
the Ryan Miller night was that night?
Oh, yeah. I have it ingrained in my head. The Heritage Classic last year when you say Dylan Cousins on the board.
No. It was after he scored the goal with one of the greatest passes I've ever seen from Dolly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was the other one. Obviously, Levi, Tage Thompson, 5 goals. And then there was one other one that really sticks out to me.
Let me think.
A different so I tried to do beginning of the season, middle of the season. So this is the other middle of the season. Then Levi was the end of the season. So it happens
middle of the season.
It was middle of the season. Happened after Tage and before Ryan Miller night.
I'm drawing a blank, bud.
Alex Tuck beating the Bruins in overtime.
Oh, yes.
On
one of their very few regulation.
On New Year's Eve.
A few losses this season.
Yep, on New Year's Eve. It wasn't in regulation; it was in overtime. But
No, that's what I meant. One of very few.
yeah. Just 2 or 3 losses at home this season. The fact that they could go into Boston and compete with a team like that, a comeback win, no less, against the greatest team in the history of the NHL in the regular season, for Dylan Cousins to strip Patrice Bergeron in the defensive zone, take the puck into the offensive zone, drop it back to Alex Tuch, and for him to show the poise that he did to score that goal against Jeremy Swayman. It was an amazing moment. And it was right before the end of the year too. So it ended 2022 on a high note. But those are the 4 for me. And I think those would be the 4 for a lot of fans.
So I'll just take Levi debut out of the. That's my top one for sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's a tie. It's a tie for me. It's that and the first night in the goat head jersey.
Yeah.
You couldn't beat that feeling.
I forget who that it was against.
I'm trying to remember. I was there. God, somebody in the peanut gallery. Can you guys remind us what team that was against? It was absolutely a win.
It was the
very
Blues.
decisive win.
It was the Blues.
It was the Blues.
I'm pretty sure it was the Blues.
It was the Blues.
And they got 6 goals.
Yeah. The start of something really special. Anybody who knows me knows that the goat had, those years. This way right here. The era of Sabres hockey when I really, really fell in love with this team. I'll make sure that doesn't fall. But come on, don't fall. Okay. That's when I really fell in love with this hockey team. Pat LaFontaine was my very first favorite player. And then watching Dominic Hasek play, just his unique style, this never give up, never surrender style, and that made me want to be a goalie. The highs and lows. My favorite goal in the history of this organization was Derek Plant on Ron Tugnut, 96-97, Game 7. Just watching that puck hit his glove and squirm behind over the goal line. Steve Shields, Garth Snow fight in the second round. A shot heard around the world, Jason Woolley, Jeff Sanderson scoring with one arm around Eddie Belfour in the finals. Just like so much to be, to look back on that team and those teams to just remember and feel happy about. And then obviously the last year the GOAT had the 05-06 Sabres, that the year they should have won the cup. They would have, if not for injury, they would have rolled over.
Goddamn staph infection.
Yeah, and he was willing to play with it too. He said he was willing to lose a leg to play in the game. But just the battle in those hockey teams, the Ted Nolan coach teams, the Lindy Ruff coach teams.
And you saw it this season, and even the Sabres said it. Like they felt evil. They lost once.
Yeah,
and that was that sleepy early January Monday night game against the Flyers, who somehow knew how to play the Sabres well this season.
Yeah,
they lost once wearing those jerseys, and if that tells you all you need to know going into next season, I love the Blues. I think the Whites are better than the Blues, but the Blacks are better than the Blues. It's not even close.
It really isn't, man. It really isn't.
I don't think they can do it, but they should plan as many goat head nights as they possibly can for next season.
Yep. I 100% agree. Ryan Miller nights up there for sure. How can you say not Ryan Miller nights not your top 5 or even top 3?
100%.
Just how special that was, his family being involved. Inducted into the Sabres Hall of Fame right before, getting the Hall of Fame Sabre, and then watching them raise his banner the right way, not the way they did Hasek's, the right way.
They figured it out.
They didn't have
we had some dark times, but everything about this organization leads you to believe that they've figured out how to engage with the fans once again. Which is great. And now make some improvements to the arena, and we'll all be happy.
Yeah. Bring back the Sabres Carnival, and you'll never hear me fucking complain again.
Party in the plaza for the first home game.
Oh, my God. Could you imagine if they would have found a way to get into the playoffs this season, that first home game? You're going to have 10,000 fans.
I would have flown back for it, and we would have had to do a live show outside 100%, of the arena.
100%. It would have been phenomenal. It would have been pandemonium out there.
And
But
we would have
I would say those are
we would have
definitely
gotten pumped by the Bruins.
watching Tage, like, to your point, watching Tage pump 5. That was fun. Hoping for 6, wanting 6. You know, that home run pass from Darlene to Cousins on the breakaway is literally on a string. I mean, that's a top 5 in-game moment for the season without a doubt. Watching Craig, win his final game, being in attendance for that was special.
Yep, and the Panthers game as well, when he made 52 saves and stood on his head to get the Sabres into a playoff spot for the first time in fucking God knows how long.
And I just
that's number 5 for me. That night was when I knew this team was like really, really back.
Mm-hmm.
For them to win a game in a spot like that with a 41-year-old goalie who just stacked the pads.
Dude, nothing better than a 2-pad jammer, Andy.
Yeah, that's a number 5 moment for me.
Oh my God!
Like, the fact, even just seeing them in a playoff spot, that was something I did not expect this season. And then the fact that they, after that game, they went on a pretty brutal 2-6-2 stretch, and partially the result of a couple of really bad injuries. Or Labushkin, overtime winner in Tampa. That's another one.
We never got to hear the Gummy Bear song this season.
No, we did not. We will next year, though.
Hope so.
But yeah, I mean, the West Coast swing when they beat the Stars and the Blues and the Jets early on, starting the season 7-3. I think they had a pretty massive comeback at home against the Penguins, wearing the reverse goat head, which, by the way, one of my least favorite moments all season long was them choosing to wear white pants with white gloves. If they ever do that type of shit again, like, what are we doing here? Because those jerseys are great and they deserve.
You didn't need the white pants.
They deserve the blue pants with the jerseys, but those are gone after this year. Yeah, there's a lot of really good moments, and it was so enjoyable. And not for us, obviously, because we've watched every game since 2011. But I think for the casual fan, for the young fan who hasn't seen superstars, who hasn't seen this team accomplish the type of things they did this season, this is the season that's going to be the springboard for the next 10 to 15 years.
How about this? Mauricio agreeing with Hurls. He rips you to shreds when you're not on, too, bud. He goes in on you.
I mean, sorry, I'm optimistic.
I don't know. I just, all those great moments this season just prepares me for what's to come next season. And here's we were talking about Fleury earlier. A good comment. Where is it? Just saw it from Greg. Fleury hasn't missed the playoffs in a very long time. Put that streak to the test next year. That'd be great. Yeah, that'd be great. Why does Connor look like Adam Larson?
It's a good compliment.
He's a good-looking guy.
He's a good-looking redhead. I appreciate that.
Comfer was the captain at Michigan. Okay, I knew it was one of those hockey hotbed schools. So, Venko also met him when he was younger. Played at a tournament at Yost Arena. Great arena, fantastic arena. Would love to go there someday. I think if any coach gets fired, it's Mike Bales. I don't think so. I don't think it's Bale's fault. I think it's the defense and the below average goaltending. Peck as an assistant, I would fully agree with that, especially with the work he's done in Rochester.
That would be incredible.
Here from Ron Pattinson, new subscriber. When it comes to next season, we're going to need veteran with playoff experience. The most glaring hole on the team is next to Owen Power, who's the best D-man with playoff pedigree that will be available. I mean,
Dmitry Orlov.
Agreed. Yeah, he's definitely has a lot of playoff pedigree. Severson, we mentioned him. Who was it? Arvidsson?
Not Arvidsson. I forget who the other one was.
Rasmus
Anderson.
Yes.
But that would have to be a trade. Orlov is a UFA. So, and he's a taxi rental, a hired gun to help the Bruins win a Stanley Cup. So we'll see what happens.
I agree with all these points, guys. I like this one a lot, and we've talked about him before. Radko Gudas again got to be. I didn't realize he was a free agent.
I wouldn't mind it.
No, he's tough. Yeah, let me tell you right now, you wouldn't get away with some of the shit that you got teams got away with this year in front of the net.
Really good hockey beard, that guy.
Yep. Some comments on people's fans' favorite moments: Miller Knight, Levi debut, win against the Rangers was the closest to a playoff we got. From Chris Durek, 90s night and the return of the red and black attack of the GOAT is my favorite memory of this season. God, Gar Gallant, loved Bush's OT winner. Chris, obviously, we Connor was able to figure out St. Louis Blues. The pass to tuck to Cousins from Darlene in that same Boston game to tie it was amazing. Yes, remember that one vividly. I grew up with the Goat Heads, but even back then, I was never a fan. Well, again, it's not everybody's cup of tea, but greatest jersey.
For a while, I thought this logo faced left, and it was like some mythical creature that was looking left. And until they brought them back this season, I read an article about the difference between this logo and what they're using this season. I finally, for the first time, saw it facing right.
Mm-hmm.
I have no common sense and no brain power whatsoever. But I tweeted that out, and I wasn't alone. So it gave me a tiny bit of justification for my argument.
I think Tim Connolly was the biggest loss in 06. He was playing phenomenal hockey, easily would have outscored Carolina in 5 games, in my opinion. Yeah, I agreed. The injuries on the blue line plus Tim Connolly's health. I think, again, that was a cup that I don't want to say was stolen from us, but I made this comparison earlier too, in terms of, when I tweeted out the other day about the Bills, after even after we were eliminated, I said, I feel like this would have been an easier question to answer before this season, but I think it's gotten tougher. Who wins a championship first, the Buffalo Bills or the Buffalo Sabres? A lot of people seem to think the Bills window is closing. I don't think it is. I think as long as you have Josh Allen at quarterback, that you're always in contention. But I do think if there was a year to win it, that you should have won it, that you would have won it, it would have been the year of 13 seconds.
Yeah, 100%.
I think if you get through those 13 seconds at Kansas City, you win the Super Bowl that year. I think the same thing.
We can go down a long road here, but I think the loss to the Bengals at home this year makes me question whether we would have beaten them after that Chiefs game had we not blew that in those 13 seconds. But that's a different conversation.
It's a different conversation, but I think that was your best chance to win.
For sure. Absolutely. It definitely was your best chance.
Much like I think Buffalo's, in the history of Buffalo, their best chance to win a Stanley Cup was in 05-06. I think those two lined up next to each other. It's a good comparison.
For sure.
For sure. 100%. So
it is harder to win a Stanley Cup than it is to win a Super Bowl.
One of my favorite moments of the season is whenever Jeff Skinner scored at home and we got to hear Whitney Houston. I can't wait to hear what he picks for his next goal song next year. Part in the USA last year, I Want to Dance with Somebody. That people were making, there was a rally cry for I Want to Dance with Somebody as being the permanent goal song instead of Clear My Throat. And I couldn't agree more. I love it.
Yeah, I personally love the personalized goal song idea.
I do too. I do.
No other team in the league does it, and that's just another example of fan engagement and player engagement that the Sabres have really done a good job with.
I also want to advocate for Jeff Skinner doing intermission interviews in between periods on the bench.
That'd be great.
I think that he should be out there doing it 100%. I think the guy found his calling after hockey for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, you keep the between two stalls going. You keep everything like that going. Like everything about this team off the ice has endeared the fans once again, and it's a pretty simple formula. And I think they've done a really good job.
100%. So, yeah, we're running a little over an hour here. Final thoughts, Hurls?
Just a great season, as we said. I think we've recapped it really, really well, about as well as we could have. And now I'm honestly really looking forward to an exciting playoffs. Of course, it's going to be a tiny bit bittersweet knowing that Sabres probably should have been there. But that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. And I think the silver lining is that nobody expected this team to do the things that they did this season. And the future is immensely bright. So you can sleep soundly knowing that this team is going to be good for a very long time, and it's going to be an exciting summer, knowing the amount of capital that they have to legitimately make a difference and make this team better. So I'm really looking forward to it. And I've never been as excited to be a Sabres fan as I am right now.
Yeah. Again, another tweet of mine too is like, I said, thank you, Sabres, for making this team exciting again. Making us as fans, on Sabres game nights actually get excited for the hours leading into it. You're actually making plans around it with your friends to go do something for the game. We haven't done that in years. And I have reason to do it for years.
Yep.
So it's been a wild ride, absolutely wild ride. And unfortunately, we're one win short of breaking the playoff drought, but I think the playoff drought ends after this season.
Ends at 12. I'll tell you this, it's not going to make it to 17. That's for sure.
No way. Absolutely no way. And for me, final thoughts, I'm just super psyched that we finally found our goaltender. I have so much faith, after having him on our show, last year, getting to know him and his family over this past season, and, learning about his story and how he carries himself just on and off the ice. I think we have a real gem, and a franchise goaltender in Devin Levi, something that we haven't had since Ryan Miller. Just the overall, superstar caliber of player on this team, not just in one player like we had with Jack, but, Tage, Cousins, Tuck, Skinner still. I fully expect Jeff to still be a 30-plus goal scorer next season, without a doubt. And he's earning that paycheck. I don't think anyone can deny that now.
Absolutely not.
On and off the ice. Darlene, Power, and, question mark. Who's going to be the next guy to make that step? Is it going to be Quinn? Is it going to be Paterka? Does Yuri Kulik come in next season and absolutely just be as advertised, and make his own case for Rookie of the Year? I don't know. We'll see. Just so much to talk about this offseason to look forward to come the draft and free agency. We're looking at this team through a different lens for the first time in over a decade. And, for the first time, when we say next year is our year, it really, really holds weight. And I couldn't be more excited. So just remember, guys, it's been brought to you by Outlet Liquor, the place to buy a case on Georgian Boulevard. Whenever you need a case for at least right now, your NHL playoff needs, get over to Outlet Liquor. Tell them the guys from Two Goalies, One Mike sent you. Duane, Cully, and Hurls, they'll take care of you. And if you had to make one last statement, Hurls, before we sign off, what is it?
I've loved this team for a long time, and I always will. But to have that legitimate and tangible hope back, knowing everything that we saw this season and knowing everything that we can project next season, like I said, I've never been more excited to be a Sabres fan. And I hope a larger portion of that fan base feels the same way, fills that building next season, gets as excited as they were in the early to mid 2000s, and brings that energy back to this franchise that it absolutely deserves. I honestly do believe it is a hockey city that is in love with the Bills, and the Bills are very popular because it's the National Football League, and it makes the city relevant nationwide and worldwide. But at its core, it is a city of hockey fans and hockey players, as we both can attest to, and a lot of people can. So to get that younger generation back, to get the people that are fair weather fans back, to the point where we will welcome them back with open arms, because it's more fun when we're all a part of it, and when we're winning and we're making the playoffs and going on runs, which is going to happen without a doubt. And it starts next season. So I can't wait.
Doug, if I can get Craig Anderson on this podcast, I don't really know.
Craig, Devin, anybody's welcome. Especially,
well, I got a good feeling about some returning guests for this offseason, but we'll see.
Yeah, especially if you're a goalie, you're welcome on. You're welcome on.
Yeah, absolutely. You're always welcome on Two Goalies, One Mike. Greg, my son has been to 2 games and both were wins, so he only knows winning Sabres hockey, and he will see more next year for sure. That's great to hear. And again, get your kids to these games. Here's my final thought. Don't let this support fade in the offseason. I know during Bills season, it's, it seems like on Twitter you have 2 fan bases that attack each other, and I don't see the need for it. We should be embracing each other. We should embrace our teams.
I I really do think that's a minority. I really do.
Yeah, it's annoying. It's annoying. I hate it.
I think it's overblown though. I don't think it's a real thing.
Yeah. But embrace this team in the offseason, embrace them at development camp, embrace them at training camp, and get ready because this is going to be a fun run next season. And get your kids to games because I think for the last 10 years, decade, you've had a generation of Sabres fans that had to look elsewhere for good hockey. And that ends starting next season. And get your kids to games, get them a goat head jersey, get them involved, get them on the glass during the warm up, engage with these players and, show them that Sabres hockey is, this is a hockey city. And, get ready because I think next season is going to be really special, more special than this season ever could have been. And this season was special. So I'll hang up and listen, guys. Always, obviously we'll be around for playoffs. We're going to do obviously a more extensive season recap episode of Two Goalies One Mike at some point here in the next week. Me and Hurls were already talking about it. Should be fun. Hopefully we'll have a few guests too. And then, again, just, stick around for playoffs. We had a lot of fun last year. And then, so this won't be the last you'll see of us, but obviously with no Sabres hockey to report on going forward, and I'll be here and there during the playoffs. But thanks for, coming on this ride for us. Thank you for the guys who started the season that were here with us last season. And thank you for everyone who, jumped on board throughout the year. Again, we appreciate you and we're happy. We're happy to report and, predict that it's going to be a lot more fun next season. So thanks for everything, guys. This is I'll hang up and listen. I am Duane for Connor Hurley and Johnny Cullen. Good night and go Sabres.